The risk management process. The risk management process generally consists of the following steps. 1. Risk identification. Start with brainstorming potential risks with project team members and stakeholders. Analyze project documentation, such as the project charter, scope, schedule, and budget. Conduct a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Review historical project data and use risk checklists or templates. Think of this step as preparing for a camping trip. You brainstorm potential risks with your team, analyze the route and campsite details, conduct a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Review past trips for lessons learned and use checklists to ensure nothing is overlooked. 2. Risk analysis. Risk analysis involves assessing the likelihood and impact of identified risks. This step helps prioritize risks based on their potential effect on the project. Risk analysis involves the following steps. 1. Assessing the likelihood of each risk occurring probability. Determine how likely each risk is to occur. For instance, in an event planning project, the probability of rain on an outdoor event day might be assessed using weather forecasts. 2. Evaluating the potential impact of each risk consequences. Determine the potential consequences if the risk occurs. In a product launch, the impact of a manufacturing delay could be significant, leading to lost sales and customer dissatisfaction. 3. Prioritizing risks based on their probability and impact. Combine the probability and impact to prioritize risks. For example, a risk with high probability and high impact, like a key team member leaving the project, would be a top priority. 3. Risk evaluation. Risk evaluation involves determining the overall level of risk the project faces and comparing it to the project's risk tolerance. The steps involves 1. Determining the overall project risk level. Summarize the overall risk exposure. For instance, in a large infrastructure project, combining all high priority risks might show that the project is highly risky. 2. Comparing identified risks to the project's risk tolerance. Assess whether the identified risks are within acceptable limits. If a project's overall risk level exceeds the organization's risk tolerance, it may require additional mitigation strategies or even reconsideration. 3. Deciding on the appropriate risk response strategy. Selecting the right risk response strategy is a critical step in the risk management process. This involves determining how to address each identified risk based on its probability and impact. The chosen strategy should align with the project's objectives and the organization's risk tolerance. The main types of risk response strategies include mitigation, transfer, acceptance, and avoidance. 4. Risk response planning. Risk response planning involves developing strategies to manage identified risks effectively. This process ensures that appropriate actions are taken to minimize the negative impact of risks or to capitalize on potential opportunities. The key components of risk response planning include developing strategies to 1. Mitigation. Mitigation involves taking actions to reduce the probability or impact of a risk. This approach aims to lessen the severity of the risk's effects on the project. For instance, implementing rigorous code reviews and automated testing to reduce the risk of bugs and system failures. 2. Transfer. Transferring risk involves shifting the responsibility and consequences of a risk to a third party. This is often achieved through contracts, insurance, or outsourcing. For example, purchasing insurance to cover potential damages from equipment breakdowns. 3. Acceptance. Acceptance means acknowledging the risk and deciding to proceed without taking any specific action to address it. This strategy is typically used for low probability or low impact risks where mitigation efforts may not be cost effective. For instance, accepting the minor risk of a few attendees cancelling at the last minute. 4. Avoidance. Avoidance involves changing the project plan to eliminate the risk entirely. This strategy is used when a risk has a high probability and high impact, and the project can be adjusted to avoid it. For example, avoiding the risk of regulatory non-compliance by not entering a highly regulated market. 5. Creating contingency plans for high-priority risks. Contingency plans are predefined actions that will be taken if a high-priority risk materializes. These plans ensure that the project team is prepared to respond quickly and effectively to significant risks. Imagine developing a contingency plan for severe weather delays, which includes rescheduling work and securing additional resources to stay on track. 6. Assigning responsibilities for implementing risk responses. Assigning specific individuals or teams the responsibility for implementing risk responses ensures accountability and clarity. in managing risks. This step is crucial for effective risk management as it designates who will take action and monitor the risk. For example, assigning a senior developer the responsibility for implementing code reviews and testing protocols to mitigate the risk of software bugs. Risk monitoring and control. Risk monitoring and control is an ongoing process that ensures risks are actively managed throughout the project lifecycle. This involves tracking identified risks, identifying new risks as they emerge, updating risk assessments and response plans, and communicating risk information to stakeholders. 1. Tracking identified risks throughout the project lifecycle. Once risks are identified and response strategies are implemented, it's crucial to continually monitor these risks to ensure that the responses are effective and that no new developments have increased their potential impact. Think of tracking identified risks like maintaining a garden. Initially, you plant seeds, identify risks, and set up a watering schedule, implement risk responses. You need to regularly check the garden, track risks to ensure that the plants are growing well, and adjust the watering schedule if you notice any issues. 2. Identifying new risks as they emerge. As a project progresses, new risks may emerge that were not initially identified. It's essential to stay vigilant and identify these new risks promptly. Consider identifying new risks like being a detective in a constantly evolving case. Just as a detective must be alert to new clues and developments, project managers must be attentive to new risks that arise and need investigation. 3. Updating risk assessments and response plans as needed. Risk assessments and response plans must be updated to reflect the current status of the project and any new information. This ensures that the project's risk management approach remains relevant and effective. Updating risk assessments is like a pilot adjusting a flight plan due to changing weather conditions. Just as a pilot needs to adjust the route to ensure a safe and efficient flight, project managers must update risk plans to navigate the project successfully. 4. Communicating risk information to stakeholders. Effective communication ensures that all stakeholders are aware of the current risk status, the actions being taken, and any changes to the risk management plan. This fosters transparency and trust. Communicating risk information is like a sports coach updating the team on the game plan during halftime. The coach provides information on what's working, what needs to change, and how the team should adapt to achieve their goal. Similarly, project managers must keep stakeholders informed to ensure everyone is aligned and prepared.